Hey guys, it's Troy with another mail call, mail delivery, pen mail day, and got myself another Waterman here. And from the 1950s, this is a Waterman Aerometric filler that is very much like the Waterman CC and Waterman CF models. Now, originally, a pen like this was sold to me as the Waterman CC, which is more of a cartridge converter style pen. The CF being a cartridge filler as well. This one actually is an aerometric filler. I just picked this one up from Anderson Pens, which is andersonpens.com, and they do from time to time have some vintage pens, and I get their email blast, checked it out, and said, well, this is the one that really sticks out that I kind of wanted. And one of the things that I did not do is check my existing stock to see what kind of colors I had of a Waterman Aerometric filler. And as it turns out, boop, I have pretty much the exact same pen in the exact same color already, with a burgundy at the bottom with a silver cap. And you can look at the clip, and it's got not the bifurcated, but it's got the indentation there in the clip. Not exactly one of the higher end Waterman pens. As a matter of fact, Waterman had a joint effort with Bic back in the 50s towards 1960, where they did essentially the same kind of student pen that made Schaefer really popular with students. And I even saw some in a demonstrator model, but it was definitely a lower end student style pen. Let me show you a little bit of difference in some of them. At least I'm going to show you a couple of CFs anyway, because I pulled these out and I use them on a regular basis. So this is a CF, which is a nicer version of the same kind of concept, only instead of an aerometric filler, and I'll show you what that looks like. They actually do take either, usually a cartridge that goes in these, and there are aftermarket converters that you can get to go in the CF. This one here, being one that I've recently purchased and shared here on this channel, and this actually is my favorite CF out of them all, and that writes the nicest out of all of the ones I've got. And here is one that was probably the middle of the road CF, and you know, it's still a very decent writer, and this one takes either a cartridge or a converter. Converters nowadays are expensive for these. So, which is one of the reasons I went for the aerometric filler, because you've got the filler built into it. Now, what I'm going to show you on the one that should be empty, you pull, it's a slip cap, it does not snap into place. And you've got essentially, you've got this metal casing around an ink sac. So just like you would have with a lever filler, I know that you may be familiar with some of the vintage lever-filled pens. You've got a pressure bar right there in that hole that you press down, and it depresses that sac. And that sac is nothing more than a rubber bladder. And just like a lever would do that for you, you do it manually, which sometimes I like this better. To me, this actually works better, and you can put it in, suck up the ink, and that's your ink reservoir inside this latex rubber sac. Okay. Now, what I'm going to show you though is the difference between that one and the one I just bought. You can see that the nib is slightly different, even though the body and the grip is pretty much the same. The nib is just a little bit different between the two. You get more of a traditional nib on this one, whereas you've got a smaller, more compact steel nib on this one. $40 was not a bad price for this. I've seen these sometimes go for less. I think I paid less for the other one. But I knew that this one was going to be in good working order when I bought it. And sure enough, right out of the bubble wrap, this one filled and wrote very, very well. So I'm going to show you how well this one writes here, right now. It posts very nicely, very snugly, and you know, 1950s Waterman, when they started to go this direction, with the cartridge converter. They got a slender pen that doesn't feel like it's extremely skinny, even though it is a slender pen. I'm not much on the slender grips, but this one is still usable. It's doable, and it's comfortable to write with. And I've actually done a good amount of writing with this one since I got it. And then you've got the body that tapers down, and you can hold it fairly well with it unposted. Personally, I like to post it. That cap, being a very lightweight cap, and actually weights that pen very nicely and still has a nice balance to it. So I went ahead and I filled this thing up with some Pilot Iroshizuku Yamabudo. So let me show you how this one works. This is a Waterman Aerometric filler. This is from approximately the 1950s. And probably, I could tell that probably because of the filling mechanism that it has, the shape of it, since the CFs came out in the 1950s. This may have been the step before the CF. Not really sure. I have been looking, by the way, been doing some research and going through websites and trying to find some information. Now, this one here was, the seller had originally sold this to me as a Waterman CC, even though it's got the Aerometric filler on it. And so I was able to find information on that, a specific page just for the CC, but the CC seems to have been more of a cartridge, or if you can get a converter for it, style pen, much like the CF, only a little lower end than that. So, like I said, I've seen this referred to as a CC, although it's probably not. I've seen it just referred to simply as an Aerometric filler. But if you're looking for like a vintage pen that you can get that writes fairly well, this one has a very nice steel nib. It's nothing fancy, but you're going to be able to get, even though it's a fairly rigid nib, you're going to be able to get some good line variation and be able to, you know, put out some ink. I mean, you saw that one right there. Look, even enough to start to feather a little bit on rhodia paper. So this one can lay down some ink. And this one actually writes very smoothly. Smooth. Which it doesn't look like. When you first pick it up, that nib doesn't look like it's going to write quite as smooth as it did. And it actually surprised me when I started writing with it. So, and if you like this ink, like I said, it is a Pilot Iroshizuku. This one is the Yamabudo. And yeah, I was looking for something that would match the color of the pen. Yeah, sometimes I get that way, where I try to match an ink to the color of the pen itself. A lot of people do that. Some people think it's unnecessary. Seldom do I. Maybe in a black pen I'll put in some blue ink kind of thing, but by and large, if I'm going to put in a colored ink, it's usually going to go into a colored pen, unless, you know, I'm just full of whimsy that particular day. But, you know, this particular pen, for only a $40 price tag, actually performs very, very well. And you've got a vintage piece of history from before I was born. And it writes very nicely. It glides right across the page. So, you know, not a bad deal. You can. I was just looking on eBay just a little bit ago, and some Etsy shops that had CCs out there from anywhere between 18 and 50 bucks. This one of the cool things about Anderson pens is that you know, they give you free shipping, priority shipping, by the way, when your order reaches $50 or more. This was only a $40 pen. So what did I do? I went shopping for some ink samples, and I got a fistful of ink samples that pushed the price up to $50 even. Exactly 50. So I met the threshold. So, you know, I got about a half a dozen or more, 6, 7 ink samples, and another nice Waterman to add to my collection. So these are not all, but these are just a few of you know, the 1950s Watermans that I've got in my collection. And by the way, I'll be giving away coming up, a Waterman cartridge filler, Waterman CF, here at my next subscriber level giveaway. So we'll be looking for that here shortly. I've only got a few more subs to add, and we'll be reaching that plateau. Plus, I've got another giveaway that I'm planning here very shortly. So there you go. If you're looking for something, Waterman Aerometric filler, and enjoy that, and look for, hopefully you get another idea of something to add to your collection.